Okay, so question 28 on the benchmark says, which expression is equivalent to q to the fourth power, all raised to the power of negative 3, divided by q to the negative 15th power, for all values of q where the expression is defined. Okay, so if you see variables and exponents, they are wanting to use your laws of exponents. So remember, guys, the laws of exponents, you have an order for the laws, and then you got to remember what you are actually doing to the exponents, because what the law's name is not the operation you use. So we're going to start with power law. Do we have an exponent, a power raised to a power? And we do here in the top of our fraction in our numerator. So we are going to use our power law. We are going to multiply, because that's what I have to do to the exponents only when I have that quotient law. So I am now going to have q. So now I'm going to multiply 4 times the negative 3. So if you struggle with multiplication, you want to check your work in your calculator. I get negative 12. So now I have negative 12. And then I have q to the negative 15th power in the denominator. I did not change the denominator. This negative 15 was not being raised to the power of negative 3, so I had no power rule to apply. And so now, since I have gotten all of my exponents multiplied, now I'm going to move to the next law. Now I'm going to check for multiplication. You want to look in a fraction in the top. If you have a single base of every variable, you don't have more than one base of the letter q, then you do not have the multiplication law to apply. So if I look at my numerator, I only see one q. There's not two q's here. I don't have multiplication law to take care of. And now I'm going to look at my denominator, because you want to look at those separately. I only see a single base of q, which tells me no multiplication law. So now I'm going to go to quotient law. And you're going to recognize quotient law because you have a fraction. I have a q on top and a q on bottom, and I got to take care of this, which really means with my exponents, I am going to subtract. So in my calculator, I'm going to take negative 12 minus, and now I'm going to subtract the bottom, a negative 15. Okay? So you always do top exponent, write the subtraction, and then write the bottom exponent. The subtraction for this quotient law is not the negative on the bottom exponent. So we're going to do negative 12 minus negative 15, and I'm going to see what I get. Okay, so now I'm going to have a single base of q to the power of 3. Okay, and now to clean up my final answer, I want to check, do I have any zero exponents or negative exponents? And I do not. My exponent is positive. And now I'm ready to look for my final answer, and that is going to be h. All right, for question 31, it says, which expression is a factor? When you see the word factor, you need to think X puzzle so that you can figure out what goes in the two parentheses. And so we've got 21 times the value of x squared plus 13 times the value of x minus 20. So again, before I start factoring, I've got to check for a GCF first. Okay, so I'm going to go to my calculator. So I need to know what my A, B, and C coefficients are. So remember, your A coefficient comes from your x squared term. A is 21. Your B coefficient comes from your x term. It may not always be the second number. Look for the x, and that is your B coefficient. This is a positive 13. And then your constant is the number by itself, no variable tied to it. So my variable, my C coefficient is negative 20. All right, I'm going to go to my calculator, and I'm going to do math, right arrow 9 for GCF. And I can only type in two numbers at a time, so I'm going to do 21 and 13 first. And they don't have a common GCF, that's why it's 1. So math, right arrow 9. I'm going to use my answer for their common GCF, and then 20. I can't use negative 20 because it won't give me 1. And 1. So my GCF is 1, which tells me they don't really have another number in common. And if I divide all these coefficients by 1, they're not going to change. So I am now ready to move here. All right, so now I've got to do A times C. So I've got to do 21 times a negative 20, and that is negative 420, and then my B coefficient is 13. Okay, so I'm kind of struggling here because I don't know very many numbers that are going to multiply to 420. So I am going to go to y equals, I'm going to say 420 divided by x, and I'm going to go to my table, and I want to see if I can find a combination that will get me to 13. And the numbers have to be kind of close, and right now they're kind of far apart. So I am trying to see if I can get to 13. Well, 28 and 15. If I add 15 plus 13, that will get me to 28. So I'm going to say 15 and 13. Oh, I'm sorry, 28. 28. Okay, and now I'm looking at my signs because my product has to be negative, which means one of these is negative, but my sum has to be positive. So I'm thinking it's the smaller number because 28 minus 15 is 13. And I'm going to check my math just to be sure. So if I multiply them, I should get negative 420, and I do. But when I add them, I've got 28 plus a negative 15, I get a positive 13. So they work. All right, so now I'm ready to go to my box. So again, I'm going to plug in my ax squared term, so my 21x squared in the top left box. I'm going to put my constant of negative 20 in the bottom right box, and now I know how to split up the other two boxes, so when I add them, I get a negative 13x. So I'm going to take negative 15x in one box, and then this is going to be a positive 28x, because when I add them together, I just checked, I'm going to get a positive 13x. Okay, now I'm going to start using my multiplication skills. So I'm not sure how to start. So now I'm going to think of, I want to find the GCF for this top row. So I'm going to go to my calculator to help me out because I'm going to see what is the GCF of 21 and 28. And it's 7. And if I look at this, I can also take out an x because this has an x squared and this has an x. This has two x's to give up. This has one. So I can take out 7x. And now 3x times 7x will give me 21x squared. 3x times what will give me a negative 15x? That would be a negative 5. What times 7x will give me 28x? That would be a 4. And 4 times the negative 5 will get me a negative 20. So my factors now are what's on the outside and the top of my boxes. So I have 7x minus 5 and then 3x plus 4. Those are my factors. I'm not going to see that GCF of 1 in my final answer. Well, if you notice, the question is only asking for a factor. It only wants one of these. So let's see which one of these is in the answer choices. 3x minus 4, I'm supposed to have 3x plus 4. 7x minus 5, that's one of them. 7x plus 4, that was not one of my parenthesis answers I got. And then I did not get 3x plus 5. So the correct answer is B.